Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Orphanlast, aka Skylar Madison, and today we're going to be talking about how Opentoonz 1.2.1 has just been released. Now, when Opentoonz 1.2 launched, it was a bit of a bumpy ride. There were a lot of things that were wrong with it, a lot of things that were right about it too. But basically, pretty soon after it got launched, Marevna, OTX, and even GitHub themselves were working on the next version as quickly as humanly possible in order to patch the problems that people were experiencing with version 1.2. And some of the things that I said around that point in time was, well, it's a nice release, there's some pretty cool things there, but in order for me to run it, I need to use a developer's build. And that is exactly what I said. And pretty soon after that, I used a Marevna build, and then after that, I wound up using a nightly build, and so that's how everything has been working out with me. But I also said that if you just keep experiencing problems and there's no remedy for it, then maybe if you're happy with version 1.1.3 Marevna edition or OTX version, just stick with that until basically there's a nice stable release. Well, good news, if we look at this, we see version Opentoonz 1.2.1 improved stability and response. Improved stability and response. So, that was the main focus of this release. Now, this is the first of the GitHub guys that have been working on Opentoonz. This is an official release within 6 to 7 months of the previous release. This is a first for Opentoonz because it's always been a 12-month release cycle. And I know that there's been discussion of releasing version 1.2.1 as early as 6 months prior. And it actually wound up happening. I just saw a lot of news about it while searching for the news. I just never really reported on it because I didn't know if it was newsworthy until it actually showed up. Now, this version has been out for a few weeks, but it doesn't really matter because, you know, I'm still the first person talking about it on YouTube. So let's go ahead and talk about how you download this. But first, you might not necessarily want to download version 1.2.1. You might want to download this nightly build instead. And if you're using Windows, you click here. And I believe if you're using Mac, you click here. I'm not 100% on that, but that's what I believe. PKG is maybe the equivalent to the executable file on a Mac. I don't know. But anyways, I'll get into why you might want to download this more than this. But if you want to download 1.2.1, the official version and the official way, you just go into your browser. And why did it take me to bookings.com? I've never gone there ever. You go to Opentoonz download. Okay, you type that into your browser. You'll see opentoonz.github.io/e. Okay, so you go ahead and click on that. You'll get a page that looks like that. Something pretty. Okay, and then you scroll down, and then it'll say click here to download. Then you click Opentoonz, and then you scroll down, and then you click download for Windows or download for OS X. And then from there, you can handle the installer from there. I'm a firm believer that if you don't know how to run an installer, then you should probably just have a Chromebook. Because, like, in order to run a computer, you should already know how to, you know, install and uninstall programs. So that's that. Yeah, that's how you get the official version. Or, you know, of course, you can go onto this page, which you get to this page just by typing in Opentoonz 1.2 release note, 1.2.1 release notes, and yeah, so it'd be the first link. Okay, let me close my prior, and yeah, so you can download 1.2.1 with the executable or the PKG file or something. So yeah, you could do it that way. But okay, so the nightly build. Why would you want to get the nightly build specifically, and just that? The reason is because with version 1.2.1 official, you know, they were able to get up to about 5 plastic meshes fully animated in a scene working just fine. So 5 plastic meshes, not very many. But, you know, it's more than some software have, like the equivalent of. Whereas this nightly build, according to Darren T., he says that it went from 5 plastic meshes to about 100 on his computer. He was able to get 100 plastic meshes fully animated in one scene. 100 of them. That's pretty impressive. So if you use the plastic tool, or have any plans to maybe try out the plastic tool to try out its effectiveness in animation, maybe you might want to try this out. I'm just saying, like, I'm debating whether or not to download it, because I just barely downloaded version 1.2.1. But yeah, they already have a nightly build, and it's only been a short while since this one was released versus this one. But anyways, so let's get into the bugs, okay? Now, with every release, it's been something like 25% of all of the bugs fixed that were, you know, showstoppers, fix crash types of bugs. But with this one, to me, it feels like it's significantly less, and I think that's because it's just a 6-month release instead of a 12-month release. Otherwise, this list would be longer and such like that. I don't necessarily think that this means that, therefore, you know, next year, if it's going to be a 12-month release, there's going to be less or the same or more. I have no idea. But maybe this means that Opentoonz is just getting a little bit more reliable, and less bugs need to be fixed in order to prevent showstoppers. I don't know. I don't know what that means exactly, because, of course, this was a 6-month release instead of a 12. So anyways, let's take a look at the features. Color calibration feature using 3D loot. Okay, now I'm going to leave a little bit of critique on GitHub while talking about this. Now, I've left Opentoonz news video where I read this. I had no idea what I was reading. I was just reading it, and I knew it was big news, but for some reason the description wasn't as such that I could actually understand what the heck was going on. So I've read this multiple times, even recently, still have no idea what it's talking about. But to me, it looks like they're putting like filters on the screen, and that's cool. Anything that helps us deal with the manipulation of color in the scene in order to maybe change the mood or something. If I'm somewhere along the ballpark of what this is all about, then, you know, whatever. I mean, because that's what I'm saying with the pictures. This is the most information I get about this particular new feature. Like, to be able to change the mood from this to this to this, like, who knows, maybe you might be able to just add a little bit of snow to some of these trees and the grass and stuff, and you can even change the season just with I don't know, with one of these sorts of filters where maybe it might desaturate things a little bit and make it feel a little bit more like winter. I don't know. That's just some of my thoughts. But again, I might be completely off and completely misunderstand what this whole thing is about. The critique towards GitHub is, this is a feature, okay? So evidently, like, it just seems like, okay, so Shun Iwasawa is interacting with people using the software and is interacting with developers on this page here. So clearly he's not doing this just so that, you know, people know about the feature but don't know how to use it, or can't use it because they have no idea how to access it. So if he's doing this so that people can use this feature, he or she, I'm sorry, I have no idea, then why isn't there, like, in the closing statement or an edited OP, okay? Why isn't there some sort of screenshots or a GIF that kind of show a tutorial on how to use this, how to access this? Maybe if I had something like that, I could have a better idea as to what this does. But, like, yeah, it just seems like either an edited OP or the final statement before closing or issuing or whatever, an issue or whatever, maybe there needs to be some sort of description as to how to access it. Because I have no idea how to use this, and maybe if I had the ability to use it, I could describe it and to let you guys know. But no idea. No clue. No instructions. Okay, effects barrel distort Iowa. Okay, now I'm going to actually give another critique. Okay, now I love hearing about new things with the effects schematic. I love the effects schematic, everything about it. Like, the effects schematic has all the opportunity to be what Adobe After Effects is for Adobe Flash or Adobe Animate, okay? It has all the abilities to do everything that Adobe After Effects can do, to some extent. But most especially with compositing everything together. The problem is that anytime you use the effects schematic, you're not able to render it and see what you're doing with the effects schematic at any point anywhere close to real time. And some efforts need to be done in order for you to actually see what you're doing with the effects schematic in near real time. If not real time, near real time. Something needs to be done about that. I know I'm not anyone's boss. I know that I can't just order something and God willing it be done or anything. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying this should be a huge focus on things, because for a free piece of software to do more than Adobe Animate, it would, for one, it'd get Adobe to pull their head out of their butt and realize, oh, this free piece of software is kicking our butt. But Adobe, like, ultimately, if I were to finish a cartoon, okay, like, let's say a 6 to 10 minute long cartoon, I would not use the effects schematic to do the compositing, because it just takes too long. Really, using the effects schematic takes babysitting that I don't have time for. It could take 10, 15, 20 minutes for a quick render of what I want to have done. Or, you know, indefinitely. Just looking at the animation render from red to white on the scrubber bar. It is a frustration just to see it and see if something needs to be modified. Oh, it needs to be modified just a little bit. And then you modify it a little bit, and then you have to re-render it just to double check what you were doing. And then, oh no, it needs to go the other direction just ever so slightly after you waited 20 minutes for it to render again or something. And then, you know, you go ahead and change something else and then wait 20 minutes. The effects schematic is a nightmare. So basically, I would go to Natron if I needed to composite things together using Opentoonz. So what I'm saying is the effects schematic has the potential of doing some amazing things. I love hearing news about the effects schematic, but none of it does any good if there's no desire to use it, because it wastes all of your time. That's basically what I'm saying. Now, if I'm offending people, I'm sorry. That's not the goal. But Shun Iwasawa, this is awesome. Basically, this is the distortion effect set to 0. Okay? So, if you were to paint this background, it would basically be linear perspective. And then, here is distortion 0.5, or at least one of the versions of 0.5. And if you really think about it, if you could distort a normal background over the course of, I don't know, about 50, 60 frames, to where it has a look like this, you know, it would look like the lens effect inside of Lord of the Rings whenever Frodo came in contact with the wraiths. Okay? Really cool. And if I were to actually personally use the effects schematic in order to do this, I would have to know the timing of the scene beforehand with sound effects. Okay? Like, sound effects would have to be my guide. And then I would, you know, over the course of, like, I would use the animate tool and the, you know, the effects schematic and, you know, function editor and such in order to get over the course of like 60 frames for it to go from this to this, with the timing of the rest of the scene in mind. And then I would just render it. Okay? Now there would be nothing else with that render. There would be no characters animated at this point. It would just be the background. And then I would render this effect. And then, so basically bake the effect into the background and have an animated background to work with. I would go ahead and grab that background and put it into the scene and start animating into there. That way I wouldn't have to deal with the program having to process rendering from the effects schematic every time I wanted to animate something onto my scene. Having the effects schematic constantly processing things in the background is just too much to deal with. I hate that. And so I would get all of that done in one fell swoop. I would bake the effect into the background. And that's how I would use this. And then there's another version of distortion. Oh, this is negative 0.5, okay? And so if you get a negative 0.5 effect, you can get a wide-angled lens look. Kind of like 5-point perspective to some extent. It's not a true 5-point perspective image because you're going from a linear perspective image to basically a faux, F-A-U-X, a faux 5-point perspective, a faux wide-angled lens, okay, a fake wide-angled lens, a fake 5-point perspective. But ultimately, this is a cool effect, and maybe I might use it in the future. I would love to find I feel like I've already found a use for it, and I've already described it. It sounds awesome. It's just I hate using the effects schematic. And I hating the fact that I hate using the effects schematic because I love the very idea of what the effects schematic is. Okay, so let's go into the next one. Introduced a new option, merge inks for match lines feature. Okay, so this has something to do with how to manage styles or something. I have no idea, to be honest. But I mean, I've read this, I've tried understanding it, what the issue is, what got someone to even think about this, and what even this is. I have no idea, but anything to help us with, drawing lines and colors and managing, styles and all that, great. I'm all for. Introduced interim temp save scene file, which will prevent Opentoonz crash while saving the scene from corrupting the previous scene file. Okay, so basically this is to prevent an issue where you might be working with on a scene for about 300 hours and then it starts doing an autosave, or you tell it to save, and midway while saving Opentoonz crashes and then corrupts your save file. Well, that's 300 hours wasted. Well, this temp save scene file is supposed to make sure that, let's say you have the autosave feature set to every 5 minutes. Well, basically, your previous save file from that autosave function 5 minutes ago, it's still good. The current one isn't. So, you'll be able to recover pretty quickly. The problem with this is that I have no idea how to access this. So, if I go into, my hard drive and stuff, and go into Opentoonz stuff, and then go into, I believe, projects. Let's say something that I've been working on recently, animation studies. Okay, it should be in scenes. Okay, and .tnz, Adam Phillips 1, Adam Phillips 12. Okay, well, what should I be seeing? Okay, that's the question. Okay, I should be seeing a temp file in there too, shouldn't I? So, okay, so scene, the name of the scene, .tnz. Okay, we got 2 of those, remember? Adam Phillips 1, .tnz, Adam Phillips 12, .tnz. Okay, this is something that I used with version 1.2.1. Okay, so then it continues, it says, okay, so what the temp file should be is the name of the scene, .tnz.tmp. Okay, fair enough. Well, where is it? I have no idea. I have no idea where it is. Where is it? Seriously, where is it? Like, I don't know. If there was some sort of tutorial here, I've missed it. How do you even access it? I mean, like, I've even spent time going in here and, like, okay, scene icons, is it there? Nope, nothing. .tnz.tmp. Okay, I've gone into palette. I've gone into every folder looking for a TMP file or a tnz.tmp. I have no idea. I've looked through every single one of these and it's not there. It's just not there. Okay, so I'm confused. I love this idea of not having a corrupted scene if Opentoonz crashes during an autosave or during a manual save. I love this idea, but I have no idea how to take advantage of it. I'm sorry. There's just not very many people to go to about this. Introduced interim temps. Okay, we've already been there. Allowed export of individual frames for sprite sheet format. I'm not really quite sure what this is, but it has something to do with game design. For example, some game engines such as Godot make it easy to animate with individual sprites instead of sprite sheets. This creates a new option for the sprite sheet export to export individual frames. This gives the benefit of still trimming off the excess space, but then exporting as individual sprite files. Okay, so no idea. I mean, I have an idea to some extent, but I don't know. Why not export as a PNG file? I mean, isn't that a sprite sheet of some sort? Opentoonz has always been able to do that, hasn't it? I can't recall. I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm not trying to trivialize this. I just don't understand, I guess. I've never had to export to Godot, I guess. So maybe the feedback that I have for this is basically from a position of ignorance, so I should shut up. Okay? So allowed export of individual frames for... we've already been over that. Okay, let's go to the next one. Introduce maximum gap parameter to the fill tool, which will allow fillable gap size change in vector images. Okay, so this is kind of cool. Most of us are familiar with this by now. Those of us that have been using the more stable versions of OTX or the nightly builds, basically you're able to, on a vector level, have the fill tool selected, and there's this new gap bar that you can scroll up and scroll down in order to, tell it, okay, there's a big gap here. I want to use the fill tool on this and have it work. It's interesting. If you're using cutout animation, yeah, go ahead and color your cutout animations. You're not going to have as much problems with it as I am doing traditional animation digitally. So, yeah, I mean, it's a completely different story with cutout animation. But for someone like me that draws out the entire character every single frame, yeah, vectors are not going to work quite the same as it would for somebody doing a cutout animation. So I'm just saying that. Then this goes a long way to helping people out with cutout animations. If we had a VPaint level, though, I think that a lot of us would be more happier. Our lives would be a lot more easier with drawing digitally frame by frame. I'm just saying. Anyways, moving forward, dang it. Introduce draw order option to the Opentoonz raster brush. Let me just go ahead and show you the GIF. Basically, you can... Okay, so there's this GIF here. Selective is set to off, and when doing so, he or she is using color 2 and just is able to draw on top of the black and blue color. Setting it to always makes it so that it's somehow underneath black, but also underneath blue. Setting it to style order, red will always be sandwiched in between black and blue. Okay, so I don't know. Am I making... Yeah, okay, so red would always be on top of blue, but underneath black. So black is on top of both of them. Blue goes under all of them. Like, you can actually see it in the stacking order here. What I'm talking about. When selective is set to... I think it was always... Anyways, it doesn't really matter. Once it gets into well, it's in Opentoonz right now. Yeah, see, look at that. Once it's style order. Once you set it to style order, the order of the color numbers winds up being how everything is in the stacking order. And that actually might help for those of us that like to, color in with blobs, like blobs of color and such, and maybe animate with color first. That's always been an idea that has kind of interested me to some extent. But, then comes the issue of having frames where, it needs to violate the stacking order, I guess. But then I guess you could always change the selective setting for those frames. Interesting. Very interesting. Anyway, just it piques curiosity as to when would I use that, how would I use that, and that's a healthy mindset, I guess. I mean, nothing wrong with that. Now, if I could just find out where I was. Introduce draw order. Yep, looked at that. Reverted Toonz Harley Quinn handle to animate tool. Alright, let me open up Opentoonz real quick, just so that we can get an idea as to what they're talking about. Those of us that have been using OTX and, well, maybe the last OTX and the latest nightly builds, we've been able to actually see this animate tool and use it, which is pretty cool. Any moment, Opentoonz. Alright, so we have Opentoonz, and we pull out, let's just pull out the brush tool real quick and just draw some nonsense. Okay, so we have the animate tool. Okay, now we're all familiar with position, rotation, scale, shear, and center, but there's this new one, all. And so when I grab this and drag, I rotate it, which is awesome. And then if I mess with this, I'm messing with the shear of the object, which, you know, if it was a tree or something, you could actually have it kind of convincingly kind of animate to like a wind effect to some extent, or a blur effect of some sort. I don't know. So it does give me curiosity. And then horizontal and vertical, so you can shrink it vertically or make it grow vertically. You can have it grow and shrink horizontally and stuff like that, which is cool stuff. And then scale, you can make it big or small. Honestly, with scale, for some reason, I find it much easier just going to scale and going like that. But, you know, this was never meant to replace all of these. It's just to reduce the number of clicks so that you don't have to go to these, center, shear, scale, rotate, and position every single time you want to use a different tool. Like 90% of the time, this does fine. If you want to change the center, you click on the center and move it. If you want to move things and animate things around, you just, you know, click not anywhere near this and drag. Okay, so kind of a cool concept. Okay, I'm going to leave Opentoonz open because next few, you know, future new features and such like that actually require a little bit of use of Opentoonz. Okay, allowed to disable auto stretch frame when auto creation. Okay, so this is what that one's all about. Okay, so if we go into preferences and we go into drawing, I think use XSheet as an animation sheet. Okay, if you have this enabled, what you have is where you'll go on to frame 16 and let me pull out the brush and I'll draw a line and it automatically stretches frame 1 to frame 16. If I go to frame 9 and then I draw another line, basically frame 1 is stretched to frame 1 to frame 8, frame 9 is stretched from frame 9 to 15. Okay, so that's kind of cool, sounds really awesome, but you wind up getting a lot of your drawings to not save properly, and you lose work. So I hate this. I hate everything about this. It needs to go away and die, or something needs to be done to fix it. Like, if it's deleting your drawings, then it's not working as intended. So anyways, you turn this off, and you're able to keep things as the same, you know, file, to have the same, you know, set of levels in the level strip. It's the same file. Okay, it's important to remember it as that. It's the same file, because when you turn off animation sheet as XSheet as animation sheet, when you turn that off, this would be a completely different level strip. It'd be a completely different file from frames 1, 9, and 16. But we can actually see frames 1, 9, 16, now 21. Okay, we can still see that, but you know. Now this one I'll address just right now. Let me go on to frame 29 and draw some squigglies and stuff, and frame 30, draw some squigglies, and let's see, frame 81, squiggly. Okay, so you know, this can be kind of annoying, because like if I click on this and expose this frame for 3 frames, this will wind, like everything else after it will move 3 frames. Let me show you. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I can't tell you how many man hours I've spent having to adjust these back. 1, 2, 3. Oops, 3. See, that misstep always catches me. So oftentimes I just press Control Z just to try to, you know, undo that mistake, that miscount. Maybe it was a legitimate miscount and all that. So anyway, so here's something really useful. I'm able to select everything. Let's say from here. Oops, from here all the way to frame 81. And what I'm able to do is I'm able to right-click now and go fill in empty cells. Now I believe you can actually input a keyboard shortcut for that, and I want to do that because, like I said, like doing this, like exposing it for 3 frames, 1, 2, 3, like it moved all of these 3 frames. So it is a pain in the butt having to come back to these and doing that. And so being able to quickly just go like that, right click, fill in empty frames, that's so awesome. That's so nice. I mean, that's freaking awesome. I'm just saying. Added audio toggle back to the flipbook for OS X. Any improvement for OS X is great. I'm just saying that. They need it. They really do. New commands, insert, paste above or after. Okay, so basically there's a GIF in here that I found that says it all. When you wind up having like a couple, like 20, 30 different columns or levels, you know, columns inside of the timeline or whatever, X sheet or timeline, doesn't matter. It gets irritating having to drag columns around. Being able to cut, copy, or paste a column around can save time, and you know it has paste insert before or after, and yeah, before or after, and that determines where you're pasting it, above or below the stacking order. And you know, I think that's cool. I like that. This is awesome. It took me a long time to actually figure out what the heck this was talking about. It took me a while to find this GIF too. And once I found it, it's like, oh, I finally understand. See, this is why the developers need to include something like this for every single one of their new features. So that people actually, if they don't understand what you wrote, they can actually just see what to do, and they can do it. I just don't know why this is something that's completely abandoned in so many GitHub posts. I know I'm not anyone's boss, but I'm just saying, like, that makes it difficult to educate people. Let's see here. New command. Yep, I've already covered that. Fill in empty cells. Cursor preferences and drawing tools. Okay, so this is kind of cool. Oh, I closed Opentoonz. Son of a monkey's uncle. Okay, so I pull out the brush tool. Let me just show you what this is. Pull out the brush tool, start whatever doodling, and I go into oh my. What is it going on? Okay, so preferences. Okay, yep. Okay, so we're in preferences, and we go to tools, and we see cursor options. Now, I've decided to set it from here on out to crosshair. Crosshair is kind of cool. Let me go ahead and make this pretty big. So, what in the world? Okay, whatever. So, normally, I think we would be seeing an icon for the brush tool right next to the cursor, or the crosshair. And I think that's kind of annoying, but like you have the option of different types of crosshairs and such, but like what I really hated was when I'd pick the eraser and I would see just a big eraser to the right of the cursor, and I wouldn't even be able to see how big the circle was, the radius of the erase circle. I wouldn't be able to even really see that at all. The emphasis was on this weird overly elaborate mouse icon for the cursor. It really threw me off every time I used it. So I'd wind up using the selection tool and selecting things and deleting things. That's how I was doing it. But here's the thing: when I changed the color style, cursor style to from default to left-handed or default to simple, this is what happens. Here I have the brush tool. You know, looks good. Okay. Here I use the erase tool. Okay, looks good. Fill tool, well, I'm using just a raster level, so the fill tool doesn't work. Selection tool. Oh, it looks like the brush and the eraser. I don't really like that. I like to know when I have the selection tool selected. And look at that. The edit tool looks exactly like, you know, all the other brushes, except now there's a center. I don't know. This just comes off as something that will confuse me, so I set it to default. But even with default, I can see animate tool, difference in the icon in the cursor. The selection tool, difference with the cursor. Brush looks good. Eraser looks good. Looks good. It really does. I press spacebar, I can see the hand. See, that's something. Press spacebar with, well, left-handed. Left hand. Oh, the hand flip. That's interesting. Simple. Okay, simple. I still have the hand selected, and you can't see that all I want to do is pan around. So the cursor style kind of annoys me, so I'm going to set that default, and basic cursor set to large. That seems good to me. Alright, so on to the next one. Introduce a new option for automatically generate palette from color chips when raster images are loaded into the color model. Okay, so this is what that means. Basically, you go into View Window. You go into Window, Color Model, okay? And once you're here, you right-click into here and load color model, okay? And basically, you could go into Libraries and... is it Libraries? Project Root. You go into Project Root and you go into your, your scene files. And so, like, instead of drawings, maybe you dumped a PNG or something, maybe because it's a raster image. You dump that into here, and so now you load up your PNG image into here. Now all of those colors all inside of your color model would wind up creating a new palette that has every color inside of here, which is awesome. Okay, so anything that helps us with managing styles and such like that is awesome. I love that idea. So yeah, so that's Opentoonz 1.2.1. I plan on releasing a news video next week. Sorry, I haven't been posting very many news videos recently. It's just, I don't want my channel to be overrun with news, and oftentimes it actually takes a while for news to actually show up that's newsworthy. And so, if you overdo it with the news, just a new installment every single month, it just seems like people's attention drifts. Whereas if you show, that there's actual time in between actual news, and people only get the really truly relevant news when the time is right. After people haven't been spoiled with over information, people tend to pay attention at that point when they get the juicy, awesome stories after the passing of a number of months and such like that. Now, I'm not abandoning the news or anything like that. I have no plans on doing that. It's just that my channel is an art channel and not just the news as well. So, it needs to share space somehow, and it can't wind up overriding my channel now that I'm just releasing one video a week. Anyways, guys, that pretty much concludes it for this video. If you guys would like to see more notifications from me, feel free to click on the bell. And if you guys would like to take a look at any of the other videos that I post on my channel, feel free to click on any of the videos appearing on the screen right now. Thank you very much for your time.